India's declining LFPR. Now, what is LFPR? First, at the first place, this is a news clip that I took from Economic Times. Okay, this was published on April 27th. Government denies reports of decline in labor force participation rate. Now, what is labor force participation rate at the first instance? ठीक है? Actually, हुआ ये कि there was a report by CMIE. Okay. Right. There was a report by CMIE. It's a Bombay-based private organization. ठीक है? Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy. Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy. ठीक है? तो CMIE की एक report publish हुई, which said that the labor force participation rate in India has been declining in the last decade. It said that the labor force participation rate in India has been declining in the last decade and it is at lowest level of 40% in total. यानी इंडिया में लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन रेट कितना है? It is around 40%. That means if there are 100 people who are in the legal age of getting employed, only 40 people are either employed or looking for job. Now this is a very grim situation which the CMIE report highlights. In very recent past, there was also a report that unemployment levels in India have risen to record high levels. To proceed further, we will take in a previous year question that was asked in 2013. What is disguised employment generally means? Option A is large number of people remain unemployed. B is alternative employment is not available. Marginal productivity of labor is 0 and productivity of worker is low. Now, what is disguised employment? Now, such questions are very important from prelims point of view. They have time and again been asked. They have time. What is the definition of labor force participation rate? Okay. What is the disguised employment? Okay. And all these things, the basic understanding of all these terms for economics from prelims point of view is very important. The poverty, budget, employment, all these chapters are very important. Now, to answer this, we will first of all go through the lecture and then we will come back to this question to answer it, right? Okay. What does the report say? The report has been very critical of Indian government and said that frustrated at not being able to find the right kind of job, millions of people are pulling themselves out of the workforce. And that too, the effect is more prominent on women. Okay, this is what the report has said. Now, between 2017 and 2022, the overall labor force participation rate fell from 46% to 40%. The overall means both male and female included, the overall labor force participation rate has fallen from 46% in 2017 to 40% in 2022. For the women, it is very, very grim. Okay? It says that there are only 9%. For women, the labor force participation rate is only 9%. Okay? The labor force participation rate is only 9%. Labor force participation rate बहुत important है and we will be looking at the definition and explanation of it, but this situation is very grim. For an insight, this figure for males is around 67% to 70%. For females it is 9%. Okay, this is a very grim situation, right? more than half of 900 million Indians of legal working age between 15 to 59, between 15 to 60. ठीक है? Roughly the population of US and Russia combined do not want a job. Do not want a job is the point. They don't even want a job. They are not employed. They are not looking for a job. That means the whole population, roughly the population of US and Russia combined, इंडिया में इतने लोग हैं इतने लोग हैं जो जॉब चाहते ही नहीं है. अगर वो सारे लोग जोड़ दिया है तो रशिया एंड यूएस की पॉपुलेशन के बराबर है. राइट. द सिचुएशन इज वेरी ग्रेव. ओके. Although the government has the government has not accepted this report as correct. Okay. Now if we look at the labor force participation employment rates, ठीक है, LFPR in percentage and employment rate in percentage. Okay. Now you can see that employment rate will always be lower than LFPR. ठीक है. अब उसके पीछे to try to understand that this will also always be lower than LFPR, we need to understand ki what is the definition itself of LFPR and employment rate. ठीक है. Employment rate means any person who is gainfully employed in an occupation. Gainfully employed. ठीक है. Or either he is self-employed. या तो वो gainfully employed किसी और के अंडर में हो या तो वो सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयड हो. दैट इज कॉल्ड एम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट. ठीक है. LFPR on the other hand, labor force participation rate is number of people who are employed. ठीक है. ठीक है. Number of people who are employed plus number of people who are not employed but are looking for a job, but are actively looking for a job. That is employed, number of people who are employed, of course the people who are in the legal age of occupation, that is considered 15 to 59, basically 60. ठीक है. तो employed people और वो लोग जो कि employed तो नहीं है but who are actively looking for a job, तो इन दोनों का sum upon total working age population. ठीक है. For example, if we consider a sample जहां पे 1000 लोग हैं जो कि वर्किंग एज में है. दैट मीन्स फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ यू कंसिडर अ सिटी विच हैज 1000 पीपल हु आर इन द वर्किंग एज मतलब 15 टू 60 या 15 टू 59. इस एज में अगर लोग हैं जो कि टोटल 1000 इन नंबर है, एंड इफ यू से दैट 400 पीपल आर एम्प्लॉयड, ठीक है, एंड अराउंड 300 पीपल आर लुकिंग फॉर जॉब, they are not employed but they are looking for job, तो टोटल कितना हो गया 700 by 1000. ठीक है. तो ये हो गया 70. ओके. 70% बेसिकली 7 by 10 into 100 कर देंगे तो उसका परसेंट आ जाएगा, तो दैट इज 70%. राइट. दैट मीन्स इस सिटी के 70% जो वर्क फोर्स लेबर फोर्स पार्टिसिपेशन रेट है वो कितना है 70%. That means 70% of the labor force is actively trying to participate or is participating in the of course economy. ठीक है. Right. Okay. I hope you understood this. So that is the definition of labor force participation rate. In January 2016, it was around 47%. And employment rate was 42.8%. Okay. Now, in May and August 2021, the survey says that, the report says that it was only around 40%. It has been declining. Although there has been a peak, ठीक है, but it has been declining. यहाँ पे भी क्वेश्चन आ सकता है कि has the LFPR been constantly declining since 2015? The answer is no. There have been some increases also, declines and increase, decline and increase, but on an average, the labor force participation rate has fallen from 42.8% to 40.4%. Okay, oh, 47%, 47% to 40.44%. Not only LFPR, but also employment rate has fallen. ठीक है, employment rate 42.8% था तब, now it is 37.4%. So this is employment rate. Unemployment rate क्या होती? Unemployment rate means the people who are in the legal age of getting employed but do not have any occupation or employment. That is unemployment rate. So unemployment rate you can see around March August 2020 when lockdown was imposed, it was as high as 11.6%. ठीक है, but now it is around 7.3%, which is alarmingly high, which is alarmingly high. Okay, these two charts say a lot about okay. Now this is another chart. The very same report says that unemployment rate increased from 7.60% to 7.83%. Okay, that means now LFPR, if we see and look at the formula again, LFPR, it says employed people plus unemployed people upon total working age population. If we break it down, so employed people upon total working population plus unemployed people upon total working population. That means employment rate plus unemployment rate. LFPR is employment rate plus unemployment rate. That is why LFPR, if we want to calculate LFPR, we need to calculate both employment and unemployment rates. Now you can see that urban unemployment is around 9.22% and rural unemployment is around 7.18%. ठीक है, rural unemployment is around 7.18% and highest unemployment is in 34.5%. it is in Haryana. Okay, now in financial 2017 you can see that the labor force participation rate for males was around 75%, which has now fallen to around 66%. Okay, and for women it was around 15%, now it has fallen to around 9%. It is 9% and here it was 15%. So we can see both male and female labor force participation rates have been falling. But one important point is that the female labor force participation rate was already very low. It was only around 15%. Okay? But it is now falling even more. Now it is around 9%. Okay? So these are the findings from that report. Obviously the government has discarded this report and they said that this the CMIE report is not very much valid. Okay, if we see that effect of COVID and pre-COVID unemployment, so many people have been propagating the idea that the unemployment right now is mainly due to COVID, the effect of the COVID. But if we see at this chart, from 2016, 3.4%, it was already gradually rising up to 2019 where it was around 7%. Okay, the unemployment rate in India was 23.5% in April 20. ठीक है, मार्च में लॉकडाउन लगा 23rd of March. ठीक है, and in April 2020 it was around 23.5%. That is understandable. This is understandable. But this portion, okay, this portion itself speaks that the unemployment rate has been rising since 2017 itself. And now in May 2021 it was around 11.9% for the last year. Now it is around 8%, 7.8% or 8%. Okay. तो what is labor force participation rate? That all I already explained. People employed plus people unemployed and looking actively for a job. ठीक है. Now what is a definition of unemployed person? It is also very important part. So a person ठीक है. तो a person or person all persons of working age, ठीक है, who are legally who can legally work are without work during the reference period. Okay, when the measurement was done they were without any work. ठीक है, or were not in a paid employment or self employment. ठीक है, not in work means either they were not in a paid employment or they do not have had their own occupation. They are currently available for work, they are looking for work but they are not able to secure some job. ठीक है, and seeking work. Okay, they are available and also seeking. तो ये 3 points अगर आपको याद है तो you can explain what an unemployed person is. Okay, some observations about LFPR, very important points I have noted down here. Noted down. What does LFPR show? LFPR can indicate a lot of things. One of them is that when a country when a country grows, for a developing country, ठीक है, for a developing country, okay, for a developing country, the curve for LFPR with respect to economic growth is a U-shaped curve. For a developing country, the curve for LFPR with the economic growth is a U-shaped curve. Why? When the country has a low economic growth, this axis represents economic growth, or you can say increase in GDP. Okay. And this can be said as LFPR. LFPR. Now you can say when GDP was low, okay, in the lower GDP countries, the majority of the people are employed into agriculture, right? Okay, तो यही तो transition है from low income country to higher income country. That in lower income countries, primary employment is the major source of employment. In the higher income countries, tertiary employment is the major source of employment. Primary क्या है, secondary क्या है, tertiary क्या है? Primary means agriculture and related fields. Secondary means manufacturing based economy. Tertiary means services based economy. ठीक है, तो like it can be classified as primary मतलब raw materials. ठीक है, अगर इकोनॉमी किसी रॉ मटेरियल्स बेस्ड है, रॉ मटेरियल्स मतलब प्रोडक्शन ऑफ रॉ मटेरियल्स, प्रोडक्शन ऑफ मिनरल्स एंड ऑल, ठीक है, तो वो इकोनॉमी होगी डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी. एंड व्हेन एन इकोनॉमी स्विचेस फ्रॉम प्राइमरी टू सेकेंडरी इकोनॉमी, तो सेकेंडरी इकोनॉमी में प्राइमरी इकोनॉमी के जो इनपुट आउटपुट्स हैं दे गेट यूज्ड टू प्रोड्यूस गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज. ओके, and when an economy transitions from secondary economy to tertiary economy, in that case the majority of the income comes from service sector. Okay, right, so we were talking this about this U-shaped curve of LFPR. ठीक है, U-shaped curve, this is LFPR. ठीक है, this is GDP growth, right? So when a country is having low GDP, ठीक है, low GDP growth, in that case the country is underdeveloped. But in underdeveloped countries, majority of the population is employed in agriculture or mining or such sectors. ठीक है, तो labor force participation rate is very high. Labor force participation rate is very high because majority of the people do not have an option other than employing themselves and getting themselves employed in any kind of job they find. ठीक है, because in such economies the high paying jobs are very low, there are not many high paying jobs, but jobs for everyone is at least available and all the people are available to work because of course the prosperity is low, they cannot afford to sit at homes. But as the GDP growth increases, as the rate of GDP growth increases, the opportunities get created for education, ठीक है, ठीक है, plus recreation and all these things. ठीक है, what happens is कि people start pulling themselves from the labor force and putting themselves into higher educations. Okay, even the people who are in early age, who are in working in the lower economies, lower income economies, they switch from work to education, due to which labor force participation rate falls. Labor force participation rate falls. And at a point which we can call the climax or minima, the labor force participation rate is minimum. And when the economy switches into the tertiary region, matlab developed economy, so what happens is, in developed economies, the cost of living and all these things become very high. ठीक है? So the savings of the people reduce, right? Consumption of people increase. That leads to increased number of employed days, because they cannot fulfill their consumption demands if they are not employed for a larger part of the time. ठीक है? So the most of the people, again, the labor force participation rate becomes high because most of people are educated and most of people are in tertiary sector economies, like tertiary sector jobs. So this is the variation of LFPR and GDP. This is very important. Okay. LFPR of women is usually lower than men in all ages. Okay, LFPR के बारे में एक बहुत important term है, बात है कि LFPR should be categorically analyzed in the age groups. ठीक है, like 25 to 54 is the prime working age. Most people are employed in this age, 25 to 54. Of 15 to 25, okay, a very interesting phenomena that we are going to talk about LFPR. That age-wise analysis of LFPR. ठीक है, बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग एनालिसिस है ये, and this will reveal a lot of things to you regarding an economy. ठीक है, तो this is 15, 24, 54 and 60 or 59. ठीक है, if LFPR is higher in this age group, that shows lesser number of people are in education. ठीक है, what does it show? It shows that the economy is developing economy or underdeveloped, developing or poor economy. If the labor force participation rate in 15 to 24 age group is high, that shows the economy is developing economy or lower income economy. Why? Because we understood from the U curve. ठीक है, now 24 to 54, it is generally the prime working age. Okay, prime working age means people, almost all the people, like most of the people in the working group will be employed in this age. Now 54 to 59, LFPR declines. Okay, LFPR declines, but that also depends upon the kind of economy. If the country provides for better social security nets, and retirement benefits, so what will happen? People will pull themselves out of the work in this group, 54 to 57. ठीक है, of course जिसकी 60 साल की सरकारी नौकरी है, they will not leave, है ना. But if we're talking about the economies, and most of the economies have larger share of private workers. So if the country is providing better opportunities in terms of retirement and all, so people will pull themselves out of the labor force. ठीक है, labor force, and they will enjoy their retirement benefits. Okay, मतलब if 54 से 59 के बीच में LFPR falls down very much, so that means that country is providing better social nets. It is a developed country. Okay, but in developing countries, people will not retire even in this age because they do not have the social security net. Okay, so I hope you understood how interesting this LFPR index is. It can reveal a lot of things. अगर हम इसको जेंडर बेस्ड एनालिसिस करें, ठीक है, जेंडर बेस्ड एनालिसिस करें, तो द वेरी फर्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट इंफॉर्मेशन दैट वी गेट इज LFPR is usually lower for women as compared to men. LFPR is usually lower as compared to women, for women as compared to men. ठीक है. And one another important observation that we do is कि from 20 to 25, from the age between 20 to 25, the called like peak reproductive age for women, peak reproductive age for women, in terms that women opt out of labor force to produce children, ठीक है, and take care of them, ठीक है, only to return after their children are at least 3 to 4 years old, ठीक है. So this means their peak reproductive age or marriage age, the labor force participation rate of women naturally falls, ठीक है, because women need at least 2 to 3 years to raise their children. Okay, and of course the effect of raising children is disproportionately high on women as compared to men. Understood? Now this is all what I said. Okay, I hope you understood the whole LFPR thing. It was very interesting for me as well. Now consequences of a declining LFPR. LFPR decline होने का सबसे इंटरेस्टिंग एक फिनोमेना ये है कि most people in India are not employed and they are not actively seeking for a job. They are not even seeking a job. Understood? So that is leading to a waste of demographic dividend, है ना? Because we as a country are facing a youth bulge. This is called youth bulge. That means a majority of our population is young, and if we do not reap that benefit of utilizing young people, then we are going to waste our demographic dividend. ठीक है? India needs to create at least 90 million new non-farm jobs. Non-farm jobs means the jobs which are not in the agricultural sector by 2030, according to a 2020 report by McKinsey Global Institute. Okay, that would require an annual GDP growth of 8% to 8.5%, and as we know, our current GDP growth rates do not match this, and this needs to be sustained for this whole decade, from 2020 to 2030. We are already facing Corona, Ukraine war, and all these things. So we are definitely on a path of demographic disaster. Okay, with growing inflation, unemployment rate, and other uncertainties like war, we are definitely looking towards a gloomy future if we do not reap our demographic dividend. And how can that be done? By providing right kind of jobs, by providing skills, filling the skill gap, and all these things. Okay, so I hope you understood this. If you have any questions on this, kindly ask me in the comment section.